The East Wing of the White House, demolished. Yeah, you heard that right. Walls torn down, historic halls reduced to dust, all to make room for a $300 million ballroom project personally pushed by Donald Trump. The president calls it a gift to America, but to critics in Congress, it's a symbol of arrogance and possibly corruption. Senate Democrats are demanding records. Republicans are splintering. The public is watching in shock as the People's House turns into the president's construction site. Here's the kicker. This isn't about a building. It's about how far power can go when no one says stop. It started quietly in the summer of 2025. A short press release mentioned renovation works to enhance White House functionality. No details, no numbers, no budget line. Then reports surfaced that Trump planned a new presidential ballroom, larger than any ever built, funded entirely by private donations. That's where the alarm bells started ringing. No congressional appropriation, no federal oversight, no public accounting of where the money came from or what influence it might buy. For weeks, the story flew under the radar until early October when demolition crews were spotted tearing down a section of the East Wing. When asked if the project had approval from the National Capital Planning Commission, an official appointed by Trump replied, "It's a demolition, not a new structure." That tiny sentence became the loophole heard around the world. Reporters released footage of cranes over the White House grounds. Dust filled the air, and for the first time in decades, Americans saw their seat of government under literal destruction. Some called it progress, others called it madness, but everyone agreed this was not normal. That's when the Senate stepped in. Three senior Democrats, Sheldon Whitehouse, Martin Heinrich, and Gary Peters, issued a joint letter to the administration. They demanded a full list of donors, contracts, safety reports, and construction permits. They warned that the project could constitute private capture of a federal asset. The White House response? Silence. No disclosure, no transparency, no answers. Then leaks began. Staffers told reporters the project was funded through a restoration fund created just months earlier by Trump allies, a nonprofit that could accept unlimited donations without revealing who sent them. That detail alone set Washington on fire, because if foreign investors or federal contractors donated, it could violate ethics laws and the emoluments clause. By mid-October, photos of the construction site were everywhere. Cranes, dust clouds, sections of the East Wing covered by black tarps. And in the middle of it, a small sign that read, "Trump Ballroom Project, a Legacy for America." That image alone split the nation down the middle. Trump supporters celebrated it as a symbol of strength, a president leaving his mark on history. Opponents saw it as defacement, an ego trip funded by the powerful. Cable networks played dueling footage nonstop. The ballroom blueprint versus Senate outrage. Hashtags erupted. Hashtag Our House and Ballroom Gate. Then came the environmental scandal. Construction workers reported asbestos inside the old walls. Protective gear was scarce, air monitors absent. The EPA had no record of a safety inspection. Senate committees on health and environment opened their own inquiry. Suddenly, the issue wasn't just political, it was physical. A public health risk in the nation's most protected building. In response, the White House press office released a one-line statement. All safety measures are being followed under expert supervision. No details, no documents, just damage control. The public grew furious. Protests formed outside the gates. Placards read, "Our house is not for sale." And for the first time since the project began, Republicans in Congress started to waver. A few moderates called for a temporary halt to construction pending review. Others said privately they were done defending this mess. But Trump did what Trump always does. He pushed harder. At a rally in Florida, he announced, "We're building something beautiful. The fake news hates beauty." His supporters roared, donors smiled, senators seethed.
because that line, beauty, made it clear he saw the White House not as sacred ground, but as real estate. By late October, the Senate Oversight Committee prepared subpoenas. Ethics watchdogs filed complaints with the DOJ. A lawsuit from a Virginia couple demanded a court order to stop demolition. Inside the White House, lawyers panicked. Construction crews were told to work fast, finish faster. Every hour counted. Once the foundation was laid, it would be almost impossible to reverse. Senators warned the president directly, halt the project or face hearings. Trump refused. He mocked them on Truth Social, posting, "Senate Democrats hate America's success." That post alone got 6 million shares in 2 hours. The message was clear. He wasn't backing down. Then came the polls. 58% of voters opposed the project. 27% of Republicans called it abuse of presidential power. Approval ratings dipped sharply among independents. Inside the GOP, strategists worried the ballroom could become Trump's bridge to nowhere. But it was too late. The concrete was already pouring.
Meanwhile, workers and insiders began talking. One contractor claimed they were told to remove presidential records from old storage rooms without archival staff present. If true, that could mean destruction of federal property. Lawyers warned of criminal liability. The White House ignored them. By the end of the month, the East Wing was half gone, and so was public trust. One commentator said it best. Trump isn't just redesigning a building, he's redesigning the boundaries of power. And then came the moment that turned controversy into crisis. A Senate staffer leaked emails showing that White House officials had knowingly bypassed the regulatory review process, with Trump personally approving the timing to avoid delays from bureaucrats. That line alone was enough to justify a formal inquiry. The Senate Majority Leader announced hearings would begin within days. Now Washington is divided between two clocks. One ticking toward construction, the other toward investigation. The question is, which will finish first? Because when cement hardens faster than truth, the damage lasts forever. But here's the part nobody's talking about. What happens if this actually goes forward? So, what happens if this goes forward? Here's the truth. This scandal isn't about architecture anymore. It's about power. About how a president can test the limits of democracy using blueprints and bulldozers instead of laws and lawyers. For decades, every renovation of the White House has represented the spirit of its time. Truman rebuilt it for safety. Kennedy restored it for diplomacy. But Trump? He's rebuilding it for control. Each beam, each chandelier, each marble column, a statement that the presidency isn't just an office, it's his brand.
That's why this moment is dangerous. Because once a president starts treating public property like private empire, the balance between citizen and sovereign tilts, and it rarely tilts back. Look at the pattern. Nixon used secrecy. Reagan used deregulation. Now Trump uses construction, literally reshaping space to reflect dominance. It's governance through design. Every wall he raises becomes a political message. I decide what stands and what falls. Democrats frame it as corruption. Republicans call it strong leadership. But behind both narratives lies one shared fear, that Americans are getting used to it. Scandal fatigue, outrage exhaustion. We stop asking how this happened and just watch it happen. That's how norms die. Not with an explosion, but with applause. Meanwhile, inside Washington, strategists whisper that this fight could shape the 2026 midterms. If the ballroom stands, Trump emerges as a builder president, the man who got things done while others talked. If it collapses under legal scrutiny, he becomes the martyr, the president punished for trying to make America beautiful. Either way, he wins the narrative. That's the trap. And here's another layer: money. Donors who funded this project may hold silent leverage over policy, tax breaks, appointments, contracts. That's the real architecture, the invisible web of influence built alongside the ballroom's walls. For ordinary Americans, this might sound distant, but it's not.
Because if power can be remodeled in daylight, what stops future leaders from doing the same with voting laws, courts, or media regulations? Democracy doesn't vanish overnight. It fades, one permit at a time. Senate aides describe the current mood as controlled panic. Committees are drafting subpoenas while construction crews pour concrete. It's a race between accountability and cement. And in this race, concrete sets faster.
One aide said quietly, "We're not sure if the building or the system will collapse first." That line says everything. Let's break down what could happen next. Scenario 1. The ballroom rises. Construction finishes before oversight catches up. Trump holds a grand opening, invites donors, world leaders, and cameras. He stands on polished marble, declaring victory over bureaucracy. His message: "I built what others couldn't." Supporters cheer. Critics rage. But politically, the win is permanent, because the image of success drowns out the sound of scandal. Scenario 2. The Senate strikes back. Subpoenas fly. Internal memos leak. Whistleblowers testify about safety shortcuts and donor quid pro quo promises. The project freezes mid-construction. Cranes stand idle. Monuments of defiance caught halfway to completion. Injunctions pile up. The site becomes a symbol of political overreach, broadcast live every evening. Trump calls it a witch hunt. Democrats call it accountability. The country calls it exhausting. Scenario 3. The public turns. Asbestos exposure stories break. Photos of unprotected workers go viral. Health agencies issue warnings. Parents ask how a renovation at the White House could endanger the people working there. Even conservative media demands answers. Polls swing hard. Suddenly, defending the project looks toxic for anyone on the ballot. That's when allies start to vanish. Whichever path unfolds, none ends cleanly, because this isn't a scandal that can be undone by apology or audit. It's structural, physically embedded into the nation's home. Even if the project stops tomorrow, the damage is already built in. And the deeper story isn't about a ballroom, it's about precedent. If the people's house can be privatized once, it can be privatized again. The next president might add a new wing, sponsored by donors, or sell naming rights to fund national restoration. Step by step, the idea of public ownership fades into the past.
History teaches this lesson again and again. When power becomes spectacle, freedom becomes audience. And right now, America is watching its democracy under construction, literally. So let me ask you this. Is this accountability or theater, renovation or rebellion? When a leader tears down the walls of the nation's house, what exactly is he rebuilding? The structure or himself? Because every presidency leaves a mark, but some leave scars. And this one, it's bleeding through the paint. Maybe this scandal isn't about Trump alone. Maybe it's about a system that let it happen, where laws move slower than ambition and outrage lasts shorter than a news cycle, where citizens scroll, shrug, and move on. That's the real crisis. Apathy dressed as normalcy. If you believe the White House belongs to the people, this story isn't just political, it's personal. Because when they start rebuilding your history without your permission, you lose more than bricks. You lose your voice. So what do you think? Is the East Wing demolition a legacy project or a warning siren? Comment below. Tell the truth as you see it. Because this debate isn't happening in Congress, it's happening right here with you. Like this video. Share it before the story gets buried under dust and concrete. Subscribe, because we'll follow every hearing, every document drop, every headline. Trust me, this scandal has just begun. And remember this, democracy doesn't always fall with a coup. Sometimes it falls with a construction permit.